From Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Megan van Wijngaard. With me today is Miranda Sherry, the author of Black Dog Summer. Miranda, tell us about the title of your book, Black Dog Summer. Why did you choose this title, and what do you hope it conveys to your readers?
The story takes place in Johannesburg, for the most part, over quite a short period of time. And it's happening in that stormy part of the year in summer in Joburg, where it's very hot, but the day always ends with that sort of really dramatic storm. And I wanted to use the energy of the weather and the environment and the mood it created to sort of build the tension of the story. And so that's the summer part. The Black Dog, well, the book takes place after a violent event has happened, and I use the black dog as a symbol to sort of represent that violent energy that's hanging around after the event has occurred.
Your book is set in the African bushveld of the Limpopo province, as well as the bustling city of Johannesburg. Why did you choose these two locations, and what research was involved in your writing?
I wanted to juxtapose the life in Joburg with a sort of, I've set it in a upmarket, very northern suburbs housing estate where everyone's sort of on the up, and it's quite a wealthy environment. And I wanted to have that as an opposite to this very rural, very simple, very natural environment in Limpopo, because it's set on an animal rehabilitation center in a sort of an old farm that's been repurposed for this. And you know, the characters out there, they go shopping for clothes once a year, you know, and I wanted to bring the character from there, from that environment, and deposit her in this suburban, sort of very Western, very financially orientated environment. To just, she needs to be a fish out of water. So apart from the fact that Limpopo was the right setting for the incident that takes place, and you know, I needed to be in the bush, I needed to be in that environment, Joburg was the perfect opposite.
South Africa has a bad reputation of being one of the most violent countries in the world, and Black Dog Summer is the story of a brutally murdered woman. Why did you choose this genre?
I didn't want to focus on that, and I suppose I could have chosen any violent event in any part of the world, but my story needed to take place here, and it was born out of a childhood experience that I had had. So I knew someone who'd been involved in a farm murder, had survived, and I was very plagued as I was growing up, thinking about this person and what they'd gone through, and wondering whether you can sort of survive that, whether you can make a life for yourself after having lived through that. And so that's why the farm murder happens in my book. I didn't want to just dwell on, you know, the violent aspect. We live in a violent world. It's not just South Africa. It's just that this is where my story is set, because this is where I am set.
Were you in some way trying to highlight the plight of farm murders in the country?
I wasn't really. I think that it will automatically happen because it is something that's real, and although I've fictionalized it, it's a part of reality here, and no doubt it will come up again and again, but it isn't something that I specifically set out to really focus on. I think I found it really hard to research. I struggled. I shed a lot of tears. It was really difficult. Just, I think violence is abhorrent in whatever form, in whatever circumstance. And for the purposes of my story, this is the circumstance that suited it.
The book covers some difficult subjects such as murder, self-harm, depression, witchcraft, and bereavement. What did you learn through writing the story, and what do you hope your readers will take from it?
in order to write it and to make the characters as real and as vivid as possible, I did as much research as I could. And I tried to put myself into, inside those characters. So the girl that hurts herself, I really, when I was thinking about what she'd gone through and who she was and this character that I was creating, I thought, what would she do? And it was a natural extension of all the confusion, the guilt and the pain that she was experiencing. It was a coping mechanism. But when writing it, I didn't carry it with me. Once I closed the laptop, the grief, the loss, the murder, the self-harm, it stayed in there. I guess I was able to cope with it in the creating of the story, and then I could just leave it get on with my normal life. But I do hope that readers get to the point in the book where redemption is possible, and it's ultimately a story about hope and healing. It's not just a story about despair. And the characters very naturally go on this process, and I hope the readers do too.
Black Dog Summer is your first published work. Tell us about your journey until now. What challenges have you faced, and what advice would you give to other South African writers?
Wow. The biggest challenge is, of course, having the guts to sit down and write something, which took me years to do, to build up the courage to do. I'd always wanted to since I was little. And it's quite difficult because you have to sort of squash all the doubts and fears and the will I be good enough, and just sort of get on with it. And the way I did that was just to write as if no one would ever read it. So I thought, oh, this is just for me. I sort of told myself, I said, no one's going to read it. It doesn't matter if it's horrible, if it's bad. And my first book was quite bad. And it was a learning experience, but it was just getting to the end of it. That was the most fundamental lesson. Get through it, write it all, put it out there, and then you can fix it and work with it and play with it. So the advice I would give is to take some time out of every single day, even if it's half an hour, even 10 minutes, and just open the document or your book if you're writing it down, and just be with it for that time. You don't have to write something amazing every day, or in fact write something every day, but just commit to that. And eventually, over time, you will have something that's complete and that exists, and that you can then go, aha, I can work with this. The raw material is there, now I can play.
And what can we expect from you in the future?
More books, I hope. I'm busy working on one now, and I started writing it before this Black Dog Summer got published. So I am well into it, and we'll see. Hopefully I get it done soon, get it out there.
That was Polity talking to Miranda Sherry about her book, Black Dog Summer.